I never thought a California staycation would turn into a high-stakes betrayal, but here we are. At my mother's 60th birthday, I showed up with a piano my daughter and I had spent 4 months restoring. Not just a gift, it was a resurrection. Walnut wood buffed till it glowed, keys realigned by hand, and her initials etched subtly on the fallboard. A piece of the past brought back to life. Emma had helped too, sanding the edges, painting the stool in light sage. It was meant to be a surprise, a memory, a moment. But the moment never came. They were already deep into the party when we arrived, laughter tumbling out from the back patio, the smell of potato salad and store-bought ribs hanging in the summer air. Balloons that said 60 and thriving fluttered against the wooden fence. I saw Chelsea, first my younger sister in a white linen jumpsuit holding court. As usual, one hand on a glass of wine, the other on her husband's shoulder. Her twin sons, Camden and Cole, zipped around with sparklers while our mother cooed, future lawyers or senators, I swear. I carried the piano key, just the small golden one, tucked inside a velvet pouch in my pocket. Emma held the card she'd made with glitter and marker, the E in Grandma drawn backward. The moment I stepped onto the deck, my mother turned and froze. "Oh," she said, "just that. Not you made it, not look who's here, just oh." She glanced around like looking for an excuse. "You can sit at the kids' table," she said, finally waving toward a plastic fold-out shoved to the side near the trash bins. "We're out of seats." I looked at Emma. Her face pinched into that quiet 8-year-old confusion that never needs explaining. I smiled tight and said, "We won't stay long." Chelsea didn't even look up from her conversation. One of her boys spilled juice on the deck. Everyone laughed like it was adorable. I took the key from my pocket, placed it on the kitchen counter beside a tray of cupcakes, and left without another word. No one followed. No one called my name. The velvet pouch just sat there, ignored like everything else I'd tried to give them. 15 minutes later, I got a text from Chelsea. "Why is there a piano in the alley behind Mom's garage?" I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "Maybe music deserves to live where people actually listen." No reply. 2 hours later, Emma was curled on the couch with her favorite blanket, half asleep, still in her party dress. I was on my second glass of Pinot when the doorbell rang. It was my dad, Walter Porter. 6'2", Vietnam-era, stoic eyes like iced asphalt. He stood there in his best shirt, still tucked in from the party, with a faint glisten of sweat on his temples. Not from running, from boiling. He didn't wait for me to invite him in. "Real classy Ryan," he said, stepping over the threshold. "Dropping a damn piano in the alley like some kind of stunt." I didn't move. It wasn't a stunt. What the hell would you call it? "A gift," I said. "One you didn't want." His jaw clenched. "You embarrassed her. You made a scene. She said you didn't even say hello." "She told me to sit with the kids," I said. "And you didn't say anything." He waved a hand like brushing away smoke. "Jesus, Ryan. Why do you always make everything so goddamn dramatic? Always needing attention, always." I walked to the kitchen drawer, opened it, and pulled out a worn photo. It was me around 10, sitting alone at my birthday. A cake with my name spelled wrong. No one else in the frame. I held it up. "You don't get to talk about attention." His mouth twitched. For a second I thought he might say sorry, but of course not. "We just wanted a simple party," he muttered. "Not whatever this is." I nodded. "You got what you wanted." He looked toward the hallway. "Emma home." I stepped between him and the view. "She's sleeping." He hesitated. Something changed behind his eyes. A flicker. Maybe guilt. Maybe calculation. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "maybe you two can come by next weekend. Just family, low-key. Your mom, she misses Emma." "She had the chance to talk to her today," I said. "She passed." He stood there awkwardly, adjusting his belt like a reflex. "It's just complicated." "No," I said, "it's really not." He didn't argue, just nodded, slowly glanced at the photo still on the counter, then turned and left. Didn't even close the door. The next morning there was a knock. Not a ring, a knock. It was my mother, Lynn Porter, queen of passive-aggressive warmth, dressed in a pastel cardigan despite the heat, holding a cellophane-wrapped basket of banana muffins from the grocery store. The label still on. "I was just in the neighborhood," she said with a practiced smile. I blinked. "You live 90 miles away." She shrugged. Felt like a drive. We stood in silence for a moment. "I brought breakfast," she added, lifting the basket like a peace treaty signed in sugar. "Thanks," I said flatly. Her eyes darted past me. "Emma around?" "She's at summer day camp." A flicker of surprise, like she'd forgotten kids do things. "Ah, well, next time then." I took the basket. It was warm from the sun, not the oven. She lingered on the porch. "You look well," she said. "Thinner than last Christmas." "We weren't invited last Christmas." She gave a soft laugh. "Oh, don't be like that." "Like what?" "Dramatic." There it was again, that word. I didn't answer. "Well," she said, stepping back, "tell Emma hi. I might bring some old children's books next time. Thought she might like 'em." Then she left. Didn't ask about the piano, didn't mention the party, just floated in and out like a ghost playing house. I closed the door and locked it. Then I put the muffins straight in the trash. The next day, my dad came back. This time with a shiny Star Wars Lego set in hand, one of those $80 ones with 1,000 tiny pieces. "Got it on sale," he said. Like that explained anything. Emma's still into space stuff. I didn't answer. Just stepped aside and let him place it awkwardly on the entry table. "She been good?" he asked. "Staying out of trouble?" "She's 8. He laughed, but it was empty. "Well, maybe you two could swing by sometime. We could do dinner. Nothing fancy." "She's got piano lessons." He looked around again. "Where's the piano now?" "In the garage. No plates on it yet, huh?" I didn't answer. He gave a shallow nod, then left without another word. And that's when it started. First muffins, then Lego, then old storybooks, chocolate boxes, Sudoku puzzles for Emma. Then 2 pizzas with a note, "You probably don't have time to cook." Every gift came with a knock, a glance, a smile that never quite reached their eyes. And always the same question, Emma around. Never "how are you?" Never "can we talk?" Just this creeping strategy of presence. Like if they showed up enough, they could rewrite everything. They thought I wouldn't see it. They thought I'd give in. But they didn't know what was coming next. Because on that 5th visit, when Mom brought over a tea set, she said used to be Chelsea's, but Emma might enjoy it. She wasn't alone. And that's when everything turned. It was a Thursday afternoon when she brought the tea set. My mom stood at the door holding a cardboard box with pink tissue paper poking out of the sides. The smile she wore was the same one I remembered from childhood recitals, pleasant but hollow, like she was posing for a photo that wasn't being taken. "I thought Emma might like these," she said. "Used to be Chelsea's." I didn't reach for the box. Then I saw the car parked behind her, a silver Lexus SUV, and realized she wasn't alone. The backseat door popped open and a voice rang out high and familiar. "Is this the right house?" It was Nathan, Chelsea's kid, my nephew. 11 years old, going on 30, cocky in a way that came from never being told no. He jumped out like he owned the place, backpack, swinging shoes lighting up with every step. Didn't look at me, didn't say hi. My mom acted like this was normal. "They were on their way to Nathan's dental appointment," she said breezily. "Thought we'd drop by real quick." Before I could say anything, Nathan darted past me into the house. "Where's the Xbox?" he shouted. I stared at her. "You didn't think to ask if this was a good time?" She blinked. "It's just family." I didn't argue. I didn't want to explode in front of Emma, who was in her room with headphones on, writing a new piano melody in her sketchbook. She barely looked up when Nathan barged in. 10 minutes later, Emma walked into the living room with one of her comic books ripped straight down the middle. "He said it was boring," she said softly, eyes glassy but dry. "So he tore it." My chest burned hot. I walked down the hallway and opened Emma's door without knocking. Nathan was sprawled out on her bed, playing her Switch with chocolate on his fingers and his sneakers still on. "Nathan," I said sharply, "time to go." He didn't move, didn't even look up. I turned to the kitchen. My mother was there pretending to read the Sudoku book she had brought over last week. "We're done for today," I said. She looked up slowly, still seated. "You don't have to overreact." I stepped closer. "We are done," I repeated, quieter, sharper. She stood finally, said nothing. Called Nathan like he was a dog being summoned from the backyard. He groaned but followed. Didn't say thank you, didn't say sorry. The front door clicked shut behind them. They didn't even close it all the way. No one came the next day, or the day after that. For the first time in 2 weeks, the porch stayed quiet. No surprise drop-ins, no muffins, no fake curiosity about school projects, just silence. I should have felt peace. I wanted to, but a silence like that doesn't arrive empty. It carries weight, like the air just before a storm. And when it came, it wasn't gentle. It was Saturday evening just before dinner when I opened the door to both of them standing there, Mom and Dad, arms crossed, faces like stone. This wasn't a visit. My dad went first. "We're tired of playing games," he said flatly. "We've been generous, thoughtful, even apologetic. And you're still holding some kind of grudge." My mom jumped in. You're poisoning the kids with your bitterness, Ryan. They're becoming isolated. You're teaching them to be selfish." Then she asked it, not gently, not with any charm. She asked about the piano. "Is it still meant for me?" she said. "Or are you just letting it sit there out of spite?" It was a knife in the dark. She didn't even flinch when she said it. I didn't respond right away. Inside the house, I could hear Emma and I laughing together earlier as we cooked, her giggle echoing faintly off the hallway walls. That was the only thing grounding me. I walked to the drawer, the same one where I'd kept the velvet pouch with the key. This time I didn't just hold it up. I tossed it on the table. The little key landed with a hard clink that seemed to echo longer than it should have. "This," I said, "is what you lost the moment you told me not to make it about me." They both looked at it like it was radioactive. Then, like flipping a switch, my dad's tone changed. "You're being dramatic," he said quickly. "Look, the kids, do they want to go to Grandma's? Nathan will be there. We have cake from that bakery you like. Why don't you just—" I shook my head. "They're not going." He chuckled, once short and hollow. "You know they're still waiting for you, right? They're just annoyed. That's all." I didn't say a word. Eventually they left. Not angry this time, just rattled. Later that night I checked Facebook. They had posted again. More party photos, more smiling faces, a new caption. "It's a pity our beloved son couldn't make it. We saved him a slice." But something else caught my eye. My account was gone again. Blocked, removed. I sat down hard on the couch. Emma wandered in a few minutes later, rubbing her eyes. "Dad," she said, "why did Grandma say online that you didn't come because you had more important things?" I froze. She looked up at me, waiting. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't break something inside her. That was the moment I realized this was never about the piano. This wasn't about birthday parties or muffins or missed holidays. It was about control, reputation, narrative, and they were starting to lose all of it. 3 more days passed in silence. Then Thursday morning came. I stepped out onto the porch with the trash bins, and there they were. My parents, in the driveway, again, but this time they came with props. My mom held a potted lavender plant, her version of a truce. My dad had a brand new soccer ball tucked under his arm, price tag still dangling. He smiled like we were picking up mid-conversation. "Beautiful morning, huh?" She lifted the plant, peace offering. Then he said it. "We were thinking of taking the kids to the park. Nathan's already there with Chelsea. Wouldn't it be nice?" I didn't respond. My hand was still on the trash bin. It felt like holding an anchor. I said, "We have plans." His smile faltered, then his face hardened. "We're tired of coming here and getting nothing back," he snapped. "We've done more than enough." My mom chimed in, "Exactly. Gifts, time. We've bent over backward. When will it be enough?" Then quieter, she asked, "So, what's happening with the piano? Are you still deciding?" Something inside me snapped, and what I said next would change everything. I looked at both of them standing on my porch. My mother with her lavender plant. My father gripping the soccer ball like it was a declaration, and I finally said what I had been holding in for years. "I never wanted things to be like this," I told them. "I tried for years to be seen. And when you didn't see me, I tried even harder for you to see Emma. And you still didn't. So if this little campaign, these drop-ins, these gifts, these guilt-laced visits is all just a way to earn your way back to that piano, you can stop." Their faces didn't move, but I saw it, the flicker, like someone losing their grip on the wheel. "You're saying," my dad began, slow and deliberate, "that you think this is about a piano?" "No," I said. "It's about everything, but the piano was the line, and you crossed it." My mom stepped forward, still clutching the pot like it might change my mind. "Ryan, we're just trying. We're here now. You weren't there when it mattered." Her mouth opened, but I didn't let her finish. "You weren't there when I graduated, or when Emma was born, or when we needed someone to babysit that night after Katie got in that car wreck. You were at Chelsea's 3rd baby shower. That was planned months ahead, she tried. And I had a daughter," I snapped, "who was in the ER with a fever and no one to call. That's not something you forget." Silence. It stretched long and brittle between us like an old clothesline about to snap. Then my dad spoke. "So what, we just give up? Pretend this family doesn't exist?" I shrugged. "You already did. I'm just acknowledging it." My mom's voice cracked just barely. "You're going to punish us forever." "This isn't punishment," I said, quieter now. "It's boundaries." Then I added, "If you want to be part of Emma's life, you're welcome. But if you're here because you think a piano's going to fall into your lap, you can leave." They didn't say anything, but they did leave. My dad turned back one last time at the bottom of the steps. "You know what, Ryan," he said. "You've made this so much harder than it needed to be." Then they got in the car, and just like that, they were gone. That Monday, then Tuesday, no calls, no knocks, nothing. The silence wasn't loud anymore. It felt familiar, like a coat I used to wear and had just found again. But of course, nothing stays buried forever. I found out through a neighbor, because of course it was a neighbor. She mentioned it in passing as we pulled trash bins to the curb. "Heard your folks are having a tough time," she said. "That's awful after how hard they tried with you." I blinked. "What?" "Oh yeah, they said they came every week, that you pushed them away. Said you still hadn't healed, that you refused to reconnect." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't breathe for a second. And then she added the nail. "Jeremy backed it up too. Said you've always had issues with the family." Jeremy, my brother, Chelsea's husband. Of course he did. It all made sense now. The sudden disappearance, the gifts stopping, the silence. They hadn't given up, they'd just changed tactics. They were reframing the narrative, painting me as the villain, a selfish son who couldn't forgive, a bitter man keeping his daughter away from her loving grandparents. And it worked, because after that, Emma's birthday came and went. No card, no call, not even a cheap gift from the dollar store. She waited by the front window for most of the morning, clutching the handmade invitation she'd drawn weeks ago with sparkly markers. She never said anything when the sun set. But that night, as I tucked her in, she asked, "Did Grandma forget me?" I felt something inside me crack, quietly, like a shelf in the back of the mind giving way under too much weight. I kissed her forehead and said, "No, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just make strange choices." It was the best I could do without unraveling. Later, I found myself outside staring at the piano. Still there, still flawless, still unused. I leaned on the hood of my car and tried not to cry. I'd worked so many extra shifts for that thing, saved for months, sacrificed vacations, dinners out Emma's summer camp. It wasn't even for me. It never had been. It had always been an offering, a bridge. Now it was just furniture. That night, I started looking up return policies. It felt like slicing off a limb, but I couldn't keep looking at it. Couldn't let Emma see me keep hoping. Hope is a dangerous thing in a child's house. The dealership took it back. 10% restocking fee. Just like that, 4 months of work became a negative balance. I told Emma the truth, that we were donating it to someone who really needed one. She looked at me for a long moment, then simply said, "Okay." She always seemed to know more than she let on. 2 days after the return, they showed up again. Of course they did. My dad stood on the porch, no lavender, no Lego sets, just a blank stare and a flat voice. "We need help," he said. I blinked. What kind of help? 4,000. Just that. No explanation, no context, no apology. Said it like he was asking for sugar. I looked at him and felt nothing. No panic, no guilt, no urge to fill in the silence between us. Only clarity. I said no. He stared at me for a second longer. I saw something move behind his eyes, something small and scared, but he buried it. Then he turned around and left. No argument, no raised voice, just the sound of his shoes on the concrete. He didn't slam the door, but he closed it just hard enough to let me know the conversation was over, at least for now. It had been nearly 2 months since that day on the porch, the day my dad asked me for $4,000 like it was a handshake. Since then, nothing. No texts, no calls, no surprise muffins. Even the secondhand gossip had gone quiet, like someone had pulled a plug on our shared past and drained it all away. Emma stopped asking questions, mostly. She still had her moments, like when she saw her friend Lucy's family photos on Instagram. Big dinners, matching shirts, hugs that looked real. She stared at one for a long time and asked me, "Why don't we have dinners like that?" I told her something I could live with. Some families grow apart not because they want to, but because someone kept pushing until the space became permanent. She nodded like she understood, but I knew she didn't. How could she? She was 10. 10-year-olds are built for believing people get better. I wasn't. I used to lie awake at night wondering if I had done the right thing. If maybe, just maybe, I should have handed over that piano. Maybe it would have made them love me, or at least pretend better. But those thoughts didn't stick around long. I had already tried for years, and they had made their choices long before I made mine. Still, the quiet felt heavy some days. Then one Tuesday morning, the kind where nothing usually happens, I got a text from a friend of mine, Mark from the shop. We'd worked together for years. His wife Natalie was in some PTA circle with Chelsea, my sister-in-law. The text was short. "You hear about Jeremy?" I replied with a question mark. 5 minutes later, he called. Jeremy had sunk a massive chunk of money into flipping a house with some contractor who skipped town halfway through. My parents had co-signed the loan. The buyer walked, Jeremy bailed, and now my parents were neck-deep in payments, taxes, and penalties they couldn't cover. Mark said Natalie told me your mom stopped going to her yoga group. They're liquidating stuff. Quietly. I leaned against the counter, heart flat but not surprised. "And you didn't hear this from me," he added. "But they missed Nathan's birthday party. No cake, no gift. Facebook still said they were out of town." I didn't laugh, didn't smile, but I didn't feel sorry either. I'd known for years that their house of favorites was built on sand. It was just finally sinking. 2 weeks later, they showed up. Again. It was around dinner time. Emma and I were in the kitchen. She was stirring mac and cheese while I chopped salad. The knock came soft like a question. I opened the door. It was my mom. She looked thinner, pale. Her makeup was minimal, like she hadn't had the energy to fake it all the way. She held no box, no gift, just stood there with a slight shiver in her hands and eyes that looked tired. She didn't ask about Emma. Didn't ask about school or weather or the piano. She just said, "We're going through something hard. We could really use your help." She didn't flinch when she said it, didn't wrap it in guilt or story. "Maybe $4,000, she added, almost like an afterthought. "It would make a big difference. Just until we can sort it out. You'd get it back, of course." I stared at her. Then I asked, "Do you remember the last time you asked me for something?" She didn't reply. "Do you remember deleting me from the family page and posting that photo of the cake Emma made with a caption that said I didn't show up? Still nothing. Do you remember every Christmas Nathan got new bikes and Emma got silence? Or the birthday where you told her you were too busy but showed up at Chelsea's the next day with cupcakes?" Her lip trembled slightly, but she stood still. "I remember," I said. "And now you're here. Not because you want to fix anything, not because you care about Emma or me, but because you're burning, and you think I'll put out the fire." A long silence. Then she whispered, "I didn't come here to fight. And I didn't invite you to beg." She nodded once as if she'd already predicted every word. Then I added, "I hope things work out for you. But I'm not the bank. Not anymore. Especially not for people who only remember I exist when they need something." I didn't yell, didn't slam the door. I just closed it, softly, and watched through the window as she walked back to her car, slow and small, like she wasn't expecting it to work, but had to try anyway. After that, it was total silence. Not angry silence, absence. They didn't reach out again. Jeremy didn't text. Chelsea didn't tag. No more Facebook captions about missing their beloved son. It was like they'd deleted me in real life. Emma noticed, at first, then less and less. She didn't ask anymore why there were no visits, no calls, no mystery gifts. Life became quiet, still, but not cold. We were okay. We ate pancakes on Saturday mornings, sometimes burned, sometimes perfect. We fought over what movie to watch and made up 10 minutes later. We sang out of tune in the car and high-fived after dentist appointments. I showed up to every science fair, every chess club match, every open house. There were no last-minute cancellations, no forced hugs, no pretending, just us. And weirdly, that was enough, or so I thought. Until one afternoon, 6 weeks later, something landed in our mailbox, something small, cream-colored, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded once, and an old photo of me, at maybe 11 years old, standing at a birthday party at the community center, a half-eaten cake, a few balloons. My dad crouched awkwardly behind me, hand on my shoulder, my mom off to the side, barely in the frame. The note read, "Found this while cleaning the garage. Thought you might want it." That was a good day. Dad. No apology, no explanation. Just that. I showed it to Emma that evening. She stared at it, then looked up and asked, "Why would Grandpa send that after not talking to us for so long?" I had no answer. My son, quiet all night, finally said, "You look kind of lonely in that picture." He wasn't wrong. I tucked the photo into a drawer, unsure what it meant. Why now? Why anonymously? Why that photo? I didn't know what game they were playing, but I had a feeling the silence was over. The photo stayed in the drawer for weeks, I'd catch myself glancing at it while grabbing stamps or spare batteries, this frozen moment from a life I didn't remember fondly now showing up like a ghost with good intentions. I didn't respond. Not that I even could. There was no return address. Just neat, almost shaky handwriting as if he'd practiced it or hadn't written much in years. Emma asked about it once more. "Do you think he misses you?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say he was just digging through old boxes and happened to stumble across something nostalgic. But the truth, I didn't know what to think. And that unsettled me more than I liked to admit. Then came the voicemail. 3 weeks after the envelope, I hadn't heard that voice in over 6 months. It was almost surreal hearing my dad's tone crackle through my phone speakers. Monotone, careful, scripted. "Hey, it's your father. Just wanted to check in. Hope the kids are doing okay. Your mom and we've been thinking, we'd like to come by. Maybe talk, if that's all right." No mention of the money. No mention of the silence. Just a vague olive branch in the form of a voicemail. I didn't call back. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because I wasn't sure what they wanted anymore. And frankly, I didn't know what I wanted either. A week later, they showed up. Not unannounced this time, they called first. I only agreed because Emma overheard the message and asked, "Can we say yes this time?" Just to talk. I'd spent her whole life trying to protect her from the disappointment I knew too well, but she deserved context, even if it was awkward, even if it stung. So I told them to come over the next evening. No gifts, no surprise plus ones, just them. They arrived right on time, 5:30 sharp, like they were clocking into a shift. My dad wore a faded flannel. My mom had on her church sweater, the one with the tiny pine cones stitched near the collar. She always wore it when she wanted to look gentle. We sat at the kitchen table. Emma and Mason were in the living room, headphones on, building a pillow fort big enough to block out the tension seeping from the walls. The silence was thick. Then my mom cleared her throat and said, "We've been thinking a lot. About everything." My dad followed with, "We didn't come to argue." He paused, then added, "We just want to understand how it got this bad." I blinked. How it got this bad, as if it had happened by accident. As if it wasn't 1,000 tiny slights stacked over years, forgotten birthdays lopsided, Christmases, cold silences that turned permanent. "You want to understand?" I asked, not angry, just exhausted. "Start with the Facebook posts." My mom flinched. "The ones where you pretended I didn't show up. Where you used the cake my kids made as some twisted proof that I abandoned you." She opened her mouth, closed it again, then finally said, "We didn't know what else to say. People were asking." "So you lied?" We panicked. I laughed bitterly. "That's your explanation for everything, isn't it? We panicked. You panicked when I was 10 and she disappeared. You panicked when Jeremy was born and suddenly I was the afterthought. You panicked when I bought the car and it made you feel guilty, so you punished me instead of thanking me." The room went still. Then my dad's voice, quieter than I'd ever heard it, said, "We didn't think you'd actually leave." I froze. "What?" "That day, with the cake, the car, we thought you'd come back inside, that you were bluffing." I stared at him. All this time they thought I left as a tactic, a manipulation, not because I'd finally broken under the weight of being unseen. "You thought I was bluffing," I said, my voice rising. "That I was trying to get attention. You really think I'd walk away from my own mother's birthday unless I had no choice?" My dad didn't reply. My mom's eyes welled up. She looked down at the table like she was hoping to find a script written in the wood grain. "We made a lot of mistakes," she finally whispered. I waited for the rest, but that was it. No apology, no admission. Just a vague acknowledgement of a past so broken it barely held its shape anymore. I stood up, walked to the counter, opened the drawer. The keys weren't there, of course. The car had been returned months ago, but they didn't know that. I held up the empty palm anyway. This, I said, was never about the car, or the cake, or the party. My voice shook not from anger but from the weight of everything left unsaid for decades. This was about being seen, about being chosen, for once, just once. My mom reached across the table. "I see you now." And in that moment I believed her. But it wasn't enough, because seeing me now didn't undo years of looking past me. "We're not asking for the car," my dad said. "We're not asking for money. We don't want to lose you." I nodded slowly, then said, "You already did." And I walked out of the room. left them sitting there in the kitchen while my kids laughed from behind a wall of pillows, unaware of the storm just beyond their cardboard drawbridge. I didn't throw them out. I didn't scream. I just didn't come back. And when I peeked down the hallway 20 minutes later, the kitchen was empty. They'd let themselves out. That night, Emma asked if Grandma and Grandpa would visit again. I hesitated, then said probably not for a while. She didn't ask why, just nodded and went back to brushing her doll's hair. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. That meeting wasn't closure. It wasn't healing. It was a final checkpoint. They had crossed the line once too often. And they realized finally that the gate wasn't opening again. Or so I thought, until the package arrived. Brown box, no label, inside a crisp envelope, and a deed. I stared at the envelope and the folded document tucked inside the box like some relic from a different life. The paper was stiff official. I'd know a deed when I saw one. What I didn't know was why it was addressed to me, or why the return address was scribbled in my mother's handwriting. I unfolded it slowly, my hands cold despite the warmth from the oven behind me. The kitchen timer went off with a shrill beep, but I didn't move. A property. Not in my parents' town, but 2 counties over some tiny fixer-upper they must have bought decades ago and never used. I vaguely remembered hearing about it when I was a kid. My dad once called it Plan B if retirement went south. They used to talk about turning it into a cabin, a family retreat. They never did. And now here it was, in my name. No note, no explanation. Just the deed slipped into my life like a last-ditch confession, without words, without apology. I set it on the counter, still too stunned to process it. Was this supposed to be peace? A bribe? A guilt-wrapped thank you for the years I'd spent trying to be seen? Emma walked into the kitchen barefoot, holding a puzzle piece in one hand. "What you looking at?" "Nothing," I said, "just something from Grandma." She blinked. From Grandma, or the one who bakes cookies? That stung a little. They were the same person, but only one had ever earned a title in her world. I forced a smile. "The cookie one." Emma nodded, like that answered everything, then wandered off to finish her puzzle. I stared at the paper again. What were they trying to do? Rewrite the ending. Hand me a building and pretend it made up for the hollow birthdays, the erased photos, the ache of watching Jeremy's family live the life I was never allowed to have. I knew what I needed to do, so I drove. The next morning, I dropped the kids at school and made the 2-hour drive to the address on the deed. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not my sister-in-law, not my neighbor who sometimes helped with after-school pickup. I just needed to see it for myself. The place was sad, a single-story house with chipped paint, a crooked porch, and a front yard that hadn't seen a mower in what looked like years. A rusted wind chime squeaked in the breeze. The curtains inside were drawn, but everything about it screamed abandonment. I stood in the driveway for a long time, holding the keys they'd sent in a second envelope, tucked into the box. My name was on the mailbox now, but it felt like a stranger had written it. I went inside. It smelled like mothballs and damp wood. Dust clung to everything: floors, windowsills, even the mirror in the hallway that reflected back a version of me I didn't quite recognize. The living room was bare except for a faded couch and a coffee table with one broken leg. In the corner, a milk crate of old VHS tapes sat like a forgotten time capsule. And in the back bedroom, on top of a mattress still wrapped in plastic, was a photo album. That's where the twist came. They hadn't just signed over the house. They'd filled it with pieces of me, of us. Photos. I'd never seen me holding a fishing rod at 8, my first Halloween costume, the crooked smile I had before braces. Cards I'd made them in grade school crayon drawings folded into careful squares. Even a letter I wrote to Santa when I was 9 tucked into a manila envelope like it was evidence in a trial they hadn't had the guts to attend. They'd saved everything, but never told me, and somehow that made it worse. Because this wasn't memory, it was hoarding guilt. They'd boxed up their regret and shipped it to me under the illusion of inheritance, as if a house full of echoes could replace real love, as if a room of frozen time could thaw what they'd let die. I sat on the edge of the bed and flipped through the album. My throat burned, my hands trembled, not because the photos weren't beautiful, but because they were proof they'd seen me all along and chosen not to act. That night, I drove back home, the deed still in the glove compartment. I didn't tell the kids anything, just kissed them goodnight and stood in the hallway for a long time watching them sleep. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No voicemail this time, just a message. Did you see it? We hoped you'd understand. Understand what? That they thought sentiment could fix what silence broke. That handing over a crumbling piece of real estate was their idea of closure. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the laptop and started researching zoning codes, property value, demolition permits. Not because I wanted revenge, but because if that house was mine, truly mine, I'd decide what happened to it. No one else. The next morning, I met with a local agent, asked her to get it appraised, even floated the idea of donating it, turning it into something useful, something that might matter to someone. A shelter, a tutoring center, anything but a mausoleum for their version of the past. She asked if I wanted to hold off until I spoke to the family. I said no. She didn't ask why, and I appreciated that. Later that week, another package arrived. No deed this time. Just a photo, Nathan Jeremy's son holding a soccer trophy, and a letter written in my father's hand. This one I read, line by line, every sentence dripped with nostalgia, rewriting the past as if it had all been one big misunderstanding. He didn't ask for money, didn't ask for the car, but he did ask if I'd bring the kids to Thanksgiving. Said the whole family would be there. Said they missed us. My fingers clenched the paper. They didn't miss us. They missed the narrative they couldn't control anymore. I looked up at the refrigerator where Emma had pinned her latest drawing, a sketch of our family, just the three of us inside a house made of bright pink hearts and crooked windows. No grandparents, no cousins, just us. That's when I knew what I had to do. And this time it wouldn't be another quiet refusal. This time I'd answer loud and clear. Thanksgiving morning broke with a pale sun and the kind of cold that settles into your bones before you even step outside. I stood at the kitchen counter whisking eggs for our French toast casserole while the kids colored leaves on paper placemats they'd cut out the night before. It was quiet in the best way, soft music playing from the Bluetooth speaker, the smell of cinnamon and maple syrup already warming the room. No pressure, no performances, just us. The text from my dad sat unopened on my phone. Dinner's at 3, you're always welcome. A half-hearted peace offering dressed in politeness with just enough plausible deniability to paint themselves the victims again if I didn't show. But I wasn't angry anymore. I'd passed that point weeks ago. What I felt now was clean, like I'd stepped out of a storm and didn't need to explain the soaked clothes I left behind. Emma peeked over the edge of the counter. Are we gonna see Grandma today? I paused, the whisk still in my hand. No, sweetie, I said gently. We're doing our own dinner this year. She nodded, then went back to coloring. No follow-up, no protest. She'd already learned to carry absence like a normal part of life. The oven beeped and I slid the casserole in. There was peace in the silence, until the knock came. Not a polite tap, a full flat-handed knock, twice. I wiped my hands and opened the door. It was Jeremy, his jaw-clenched, hair tousled like he hadn't slept. Behind him, his car idled crooked on the curb. Nathan slumped in the back seat, arms crossed. Jeremy didn't wait for an invite. He walked in. Look, I don't want to be here, he said, voice low and sharp. But they're not okay. Dad's sick. Real sick. He won't say it, but Mom's scared out of her mind. I stared at him. Since when? Since 6 months ago, apparently, he said bitterly. They didn't tell me either. You know how they are. Pretend everything's fine until the floor collapses. I stayed silent. He sighed. He's asking for you, not me, you. I glanced at the kids still coloring in the living room. And why do you care? Because I'm exhausted, he snapped. Because I'm tired of being the golden son with no gold left. Because I've been cleaning up their messes while they still act like I'm 10. And maybe because I finally get it, what it cost you. That stunned me. A beat passed between us, unspoken heavy. I'm not asking you to forgive them, Jeremy said. Hell, I haven't. But if you don't come now, you'll regret it. I wanted to argue, to say regret cuts both ways. But instead I asked, what do you think he wants from me? Jeremy's jaw tensed. I think he wants to say goodbye. The real kind. I told the kids I had to run an errand. My neighbor across the street, Denise, came over to watch them. They barely noticed, too wrapped up in their construction paper turkeys and fall-themed cartoons. As I drove, the town blurred past like old photo streets. I knew by muscle memory buildings where time had folded inward. Their house hadn't changed. Still the same creaking porch, still the same chipped mailbox. But inside it was quieter. I walked into the den and found my father in his recliner, thinner than I remembered, cheeks hollowed, oxygen tube running to a tank beside him. His eyes flicked toward me, and for once they didn't harden. They softened. "Hey," he said, voice rasping like sandpaper. I nodded. He gestured weakly to the seat beside him. "You didn't have to come." "I know." We sat in silence for a moment, the air humming with machines and distant kitchen clatter. "I wasn't a good father," he finally said. "And she wasn't a good mother. We both know it." It caught me off guard, this sudden honesty, this lack of script. "I told myself we were doing our best," he went on. "But it was really just the easiest thing, not confronting anything." I swallowed. My throat felt thick. "I saw the car that night. I knew what it meant, but I said nothing." "Why?" I asked. He didn't look at me. Because if I said thank you, I'd have to admit how much we'd missed. And I wasn't ready to face that yet. Silence again. "But I kept the photo," he added. "The one from your 10th birthday. The only one where we're both smiling. I used to tell myself that was proof we were a family." He chuckled bitterly. "One picture can't carry a lifetime." "No," I said. "It can't." He leaned back. "I just wanted you to know. It wasn't your fault. Any of it. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase years of silence, exclusion, or emotional detachment. But it was something. Maybe not for him, but for me." I stood. "I have to go. The kids are waiting." He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. As I reached the door, he called after me. "You were always the best of us." I didn't turn back. At home, dinner was simple turkey sliders, sweet potato fries, canned cranberry sauce shaped like the can. The kids were loud, laughing, covered in crumbs. And it was perfect. Later that night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me and asked, "Do you still love them?" It took me a minute. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but I know I love you, and that's enough for me." She smiled sleepily. "Good, 'cause you're my favorite." Then she drifted off. I walked into the hallway and sat by myself in the quiet. My phone buzzed. It was an email. Subject line, title transfer confirmation. The house, the one they gave me. It was no longer in my name. Confused, I clicked through. They'd sold it to a nonprofit. Proceeds donated to a scholarship fund in my name for kids from estranged families chasing second chances at college. And in the memo line of the confirmation email, for the ones who stay even when no one sees them. I closed my laptop slowly, heart heavy but clear. They were never going to say everything I wanted to hear. But maybe, just maybe, this was as close as they could come. And that would have to be enough. At least I thought it would be. Until the next morning, when a certified letter arrived. From Nathan. Story 2. I never thought a California staycation would turn into a high-stakes betrayal, but here we are. I was lounging in my rented desert cabin near Joshua Tree, sipping strong black coffee as the morning sun burned off the chill. My phone lay face down beside me. I'd left it silent. No work pings, no group texts, just silence. I'd needed this break. No yacht parties, no spa invoices. I'd have to cover no guilt about footing someone else's vacation every single year. For once, I was doing something for me. Then I flipped my phone over and scrolled Instagram, half-heartedly killing time. That's when I saw it, a sun-gleamed memory carousel from my cousin Cassidy. The first slide was my mom, my Uncle Peter, Aunt Janine, even the twins, all grinning on the deck of a gleaming white yacht. Beyond them, the deep blue of Lake Tahoe stretched out like a mirror. Cassidy raised a flute of Prosecco toward the camera. The caption read, "Spontaneous getaways hit differently, Family, getaway. Lake Tahoe, life." My chest tightened. I tapped the picture to zoom in, and there it was, half hidden behind a bowl of fresh fruit on the teak bar, a familiar black leather wallet stamped in gold JBD, my monogram. My pulse picked up speed. They didn't even bother to conceal it. In one fluid motion, I closed Instagram and opened my banking app. My heart sank as I scrolled through pending transactions. $3,000 from Edgewood Tahoe Spa, $1,400 at Tahoe City Marina Charter, $2,800 labeled Captain's Tip, another $1,000 at Lakeside Designer Boutique, and a cluster of charges, private boating lessons, gourmet seafood shacks, late-night dockside cocktails. They'd taken my wallet, loaded my card, and booked a full-blown luxury weekend without even a text to say, "Hey, mind if we borrow your card?" It wasn't an accident. They knew exactly what they were doing. I didn't shout. I didn't call. I acted like I was defusing a bomb. Laptop open, VPN on, I logged into my accounts and initiated charge reversals one by one. Unauthorized use, I typed into every dispute form. I froze the card, locked the travel wallet within my app, then called the issuer's fraud hotline. The rep confirmed all the names on the charges matched the yacht guests. She apologized flatly, as if reading from a script, but I heard nothing beyond the sound of my own blood pounding in my ears. I shut my laptop and sat very still. In the dusty silence of the cabin, I felt two things: raw anger and a cold sense of relief. Relief that this time I wouldn't be the family ATM. That afternoon, the first alerts pinged in: a declined charge at the marina's Lakeside Cafe, a failed attempt at Tahoe City Provisions. By early evening, the Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe had blocked their suite keycards. Somewhere on that yacht, they were discovering they couldn't swipe my card, couldn't run up their tab, couldn't tip the captain. No backup plan, no safety net. I let my phone buzz. 5 missed calls already from Mom. Cassidy, Uncle Peter, Aunt Janine. Even little Emma's daycare number they'd tried to buy ferry tickets for the twins. I didn't answer. Instead, I tapped into our family group thread, blue bubbles floating on my screen, full of vacation snapshots, birthday reminders, grocery list emojis. I swiped left and exited the chat. No broadcast message, just gone. Now came the waiting. Night fell in Joshua Tree, and I broke open a cold lemonade. I sat by the window watching rattlesnakes curl beneath the scrub creatures that survive by stillness and patience. I imagined my family trapped on that yacht staring at the same lake I'd admired from the desert. Were they cursing my name yet? Or scrambling for a phone to ask me to just fix it, please? I thought of last year's Napa trip when I'd covered 24 spa treatments and wine tasting tours. The year before, it had been Park City ski passes and hot air balloon rides. Every time I'd shrugged it off, their family. This time, though, I felt a shift deep inside. Boundaries had to mean something. A soft chime distracted me. A text from Cassidy, just 3 words, all caps. "Did you really do that?" I stared at it, chest aching. My thumb hovered over typing for a moment, and then I replied with a single calm word: "Interested." With that, I set my phone aside. The sky outside turned inky black, and the hush of the desert felt like permission to close this chapter, to let them flounder for once. But I couldn't shake the image of my monogrammed wallet bobbing on that yacht's bar. And I knew they'd be back with pleas, with threats, with every kind of manipulation they'd ever mastered. Family drama was nothing new. What was new was my resolve. I closed my eyes, took a long breath of the cool night air, and let the silence settle. Tomorrow, I told myself, would bring a tidal wave of calls, but for now, peace, until the storm. As I drifted to sleep, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. A voicemail notification. "This is Captain Harris." My chest tightened. What else were they going to discover, and how far would they go to break back in? My phone buzzed before dawn. I blinked awake to a new voicemail notification, this time from Captain Harris of Tahoe City Marina. My heart thudded. I tapped play. "Mr. Davis, I'm calling about the suite and the charter. Your family's account is still in dispute. We need your authorization to restore service, or we'll have to hand over their reservations to collections by tomorrow morning." His voice was polite but firm. Collections. That word echoed in my head like vultures circling. I sat up, pressed my feet into the cold wood floor, and felt a wave of dread. It wasn't enough to strand them on the lake. It was my money after all, but collections could wreck their credit, their reputations, maybe their futures. Was that too much? But would they ever learn without a real consequence? I hit delete on the voicemail and exhaled, smelling last night's coffee lingering in the air. Outside, the desert was gray-blue. Joshua Tree's twisted pinyon pines stood like silent sentinels. I'd imagined this break as peaceful solitude. Instead, I felt trapped inside a war of attrition, and I'd just escalated. By 8, the texts flooded in. "Mom, iMessage. Hubert, please call me. This is a nightmare." Cassidy, Instagram DM. "Do you hate us now? We're your family." Uncle Peter, WhatsApp. "Enough games. Undo it or I'm talking to your lawyer." Aunt Janine, SMS. "I didn't know, I swear. Help us, please." The twins. Emma and Lily sent heart emojis, each accompanied by a brief, "Why can't we come home?" My chest tightened. They were 11. They didn't deserve blame. But they were part of the machine that kept siphoning cash from me. I stared at the messages, thumb hovering over reply all. And then I remembered no messages, no replays. I'd gone silent, and this was my fortress. Instead, I called my lawyer Dana, whose number sat under emergency family fraud. Her line picked up on the second ring. "Dana, it's me. They're stuck in collections," Captain Harris called. I saw the dispute filings. Everything's square. If they ask, don't reverse. They authorized those charges in practice functionally, though not legally. Her voice was calm, clipped. I liked that. Understood. And your mother's demands she might escalate to litigation claiming undue hardship. I'll draft a separation agreement addendum tonight explicitly forbidding any claims on your finances. Do it. I hung up and closed my eyes. My lawyer's words settled on me like desert dust. They were gearing up for a court fight. They had gone from spending my money to threatening legal action to force me to spend more. It was gaslighting with bar graphs and billable hours. Shortly after, an email dinged in from my mom's attorney, subject line, financial hardship request. I tapped it open. Dear Mr. Davis, our clients, Peter and Emily Davis, request immediate reinstatement of credit privileges to prevent irreparable harm. We trust you will act in good faith and uphold familial obligations. I scrolled down, saw the typed signature of a law firm I recognized, one that charged $400 an hour for family counsel. My stomach churned. They were framing my dispute as a breach of faith. Faith, my grandma's favorite word, always invoked to keep us quiet when we questioned the family bankroll. I minimized the email and went for a walk outside. The sun hovered low over the rocks, casting long shadows that bent and stretched like hands reaching out. I breathed in the dry air, smelled creosote and sagebrush, felt an ache in my lungs. In that moment, I realized how suffocated I'd always been by their demands, silenced by compliments. You're doing so well, guilt. It's nothing for you then, finally blackmailed with lawsuits. I passed the dusty parking area and spotted a lone coyote trotting across the dirt. It stopped, stared at me with amber eyes, then melted into the bushes. I envied its freedom. Back in the cabin, the barrage continued. Cassidy's DMs turned desperate. If you don't undo this, I'll post everything. I'll make you look like the monster. Threats of public shaming. Cassidy played the social media martyr card, knowing I couldn't stand a reputation hit. I scrolled through her profile. A highlight reel of dreamy footage. Champagne flutes catching Tahoe's morning light, kids diving off the yacht's swim platform, family laughter echoing across the water. The hashtag, #Lake Tahoe. Life glimmered over every shot. But I saw only the edges of a lie. I locked my phone and opened my laptop again. This time I drafted one email to the resort's general manager, attaching copy of the fraud report, specifying that no one in my family was authorized to use my accounts. Per my lawyer's advice, I typed, "Please direct any further inquiries to my counsel." I hit send and felt an odd pulse of satisfaction. Then Dana called back with an update. She'd filed the separation addendum with the court that morning. If my mother or uncle tried to claim hardship, she could move to dismiss on the grounds of explicit written terms. My family would have to overcome my own signature. "All set on your end," she said, "but they might try one last move, a GoFundMe or charity appeal." A click in my gut. They'd never hesitate. When they lost one lever, they'd find another public sympathy. It was a classic tactic play. The victim cast the wealthy benefactor as the villain. At noon, exactly as Dana predicted, an alert popped up: new GoFundMe. I opened the link. It read, "Help the Davis family return home. After unforeseen financial obstacles, our beloved family is stranded at Lake Tahoe. We need $10,000 to clear charges and ensure the twins can get back to school. Any donation helps." Hosted by Cassidy Davis. A photo showed my mom in a blue windbreaker collapsed on a marina bench, clasping her face. The caption tugged at half of my brain: the family unit. The gravity of parents in need, the two kids stranded far from home. But the other half screamed they'd stolen from me. This was extortion wrapped in heartstrings. I scrolled through the comments: sympathetic donors, strangers pledging $50, $100. One comment blamed me. "So cold withholding your own mom's funds, wow." I frowned. The whole internet could now see me as the villain. My phone flashed again. A new voicemail from Aunt Janine. "Hubert, honey, please answer. We're scared and tired. No one is helping us, and everyone is pointing at you." Her voice cracked. I closed my eyes, felt a pinch behind them. Janine was the one who'd privately confessed earlier. She'd gone along thinking it was covered. She didn't deserve this, but Mum Peter Cassidy, they did. I set my phone down. My reflection shimmered in the laptop screen, tired eyes, lines of conflict etched around my mouth. A man divided between compassion for Janine and rage at the rest. Could I have drawn a harder line? Late afternoon sunlight spilled over the horizon. Desert heat turned soft and golden. I poured myself a glass of ice water and sat on the porch steps, notebook in hand. I started scribbling points to cover in my next email to the family. No reversal of disputes. No further negotiation. If they wanted relief, they'd need to involve my lawyer. Then I paused. Something flickered in my mind, my life before all this money drama. A young man with a scholarship scrimping every month to pay rent, dreaming of being his own boss. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the family bank. And my identity had blurred more ATM than human. I closed the notebook and stood. The desert wind stirred the wildflowers, sending petals across the gravel. I felt a quiet resolve. I couldn't save the family illusion, but maybe I could save myself. I went back inside and opened my email. Before I could type a subject line, a new message arrived, this one not from my mom, but from an address I didn't recognize, support at Community Foundation. Org. The subject read inquiry regarding family scholarship. I clicked it open. Dear Mr. Davis, your name appears on our donor list for the Lincoln High School Scholarship Fund. We are preparing our annual report and would like to confirm if you wish to continue your support. Please reply by end of day. My vision blurred. The scholarship, the legacy of my mother's one proudest boast our family gives back. I'd bankrolled that fund for 2 years. Now it felt like another ruse to string me along. They'd love to see me restore the scholarship, more proof of my compassion, and then call it courage. I stared at the email and realized this wasn't just about Lake Tahoe or stolen cruises. It was about every obligation they'd ever piled on me. The fantasy that my success meant I owed them my freedom. And right now, they were using every tool, the law, social media, public sympathy, to drag me back into their web. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I could delete the email, or I could write back making clear that there'd be no more quiet donations, no more assumptions. But before I acted, I heard the front door rattle. A heavy knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. I crept to the window. Outside, beneath the pale glow of the setting sun, stood a slender woman in a plain blue dress. I barely recognized her through the dusty glass, but something about her stance, the way she fisted her purse straps, struck me as out of place. My heart slammed. Who was she? A collector, a reporter, or Janine deciding to face me in person? I reached for the door handle, breathing so hard I could taste salt. The woman knocked again. My mind raced. If I open this door, there's no controlling what happens next. I braced myself, exhaled, and unlocked the latch. And then in a voice I never expected, she said, "Mr. Davis, I'm with the local sheriff's department. May I come in?" My blood ran cold. I froze behind the door, pulse hammering. The sheriff's dark uniform seemed to swallow the porch light. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Davis, I'm Sheriff Thompson with El Dorado County. May I come in?" My mind raced. The last thing I expected was law enforcement, not family theatrics or a flood of texts, but an officer at my door in the Joshua Tree-styled cabin. I signed off on dispute claims, not criminal cases. I stepped aside. "Sure," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Please." He entered slowly, boots clicking on the hardwood. Behind him stood 2 deputies. I closed the door and led them to the living room where my laptop sat beside an untouched glass of water. Moonlight seeped through the linen curtains, painting the walls in silver. The sheriff removed his hat. "I'll get right to it. We received a report of possible identity theft and unauthorized charges filed against your family's accounts," he said, flipping open a small notebook. "Your mother, Emily Davis, alleges that you froze her debit card, leaving her stranded and unable to pay for medical care. She's concerned about her health condition, high blood pressure. She believes you may have intentionally endangered her." I swallowed. That's not accurate. I reversed charges made on my account by family members acting on unauthorized use." He nodded, pen poised. "I understand, but she's convinced. I need your side." I took a breath. I initiated charge disputes and froze my wallet and app feature. I had a standing record of fraud notifications with receipts showing my monogrammed wallet at the Tahoe City Marina. The family used my card without permission. I only acted to protect myself. The sheriff's gaze flicked to the laptop. Do you have documentation? I clicked open the PDF folder on screen charge reversals fraud reports my email to the resort GM. Then I opened my banking app showing the freeze and pulled up the marina's charge log. He nodded, eyes softening. Okay, he said. Your story checks out so far. But from a legal standpoint, your mother is claiming medical necessity. I'll need to verify that before closing this. He scribbled. My chest loosened a fraction. Will that delay reopening her suite key? He hesitated. I can't authorize financial reversals that's civil, but I can escort you to the marina to verify their status, then inform you of any next steps. I nodded. Let's go. I want them safe and I don't want anyone's health endangered. The ride to Tahoe City. Marina was silent, punctuated by the sheriff's radio chatter. Finally, we pulled up to the private dock, empty yachts bobbing listlessly. Adirondack chairs, unoccupied ropes slacked. No faces, my family was marooned somewhere on the lake. The sheriff turned to me. Their charter ends today at 6 p.m. If charges aren't resolved, the vessel could be seized, and any medical calls from the cabin or dock got forwarded here. She requested wellness checks. My throat was tight. I didn't realize she'd use that angle. Guilt lanced me. My mom had chronic hypertension. Cabin altitude could trigger issues. We climbed aboard a marina launch. The engine sputtered against the morning haze. As we neared the yacht, I spotted them docking at a side pier, Mom in a windbreaker gripping the rail, Cassidy pacing, Uncle Peter and Aunt Janine hovering by a marina attendant's kiosk. The twins sat on the deck, hugging their knees. The sheriff killed the motor. We glided silently up beside the yacht. My legs shook as I stepped onto the swim platform, boots landing on wet teak. Mom looked up and saw me. Her face flushed relief and anger warred in her eyes. Cassidy froze mid-step, phone in hand. Uncle Peter straightened, his posture, lips pressed tight. Sheriff Thompson stepped forward. Emily, we need to confirm you're safe and have medical attention if needed. Mr. Davis here says he froze his card after unauthorized use. We'll sort out how to move forward. Mom opened her mouth but said nothing. Cassidy glared at me. I knelt to meet the twins' eyes. Emma, Lily, are you okay? Their lower lips trembled. They nodded, eyes wide. We're cold, Lily whispered. I unbuttoned my jacket. Here, I said, draping it around them. The twins clung to it like lifelines. My heart broke. Regardless of everything, they were innocent. Back at the dock office, Sheriff Thompson and I sat at a picnic table. He tapped his pen. Their charter company is refusing to release their luggage until the bill is cleared. Medical check cleared, blood pressure fine. You have a notarized separation agreement addendum. I nodded. Yes, signed this morning. It explicitly states no financial obligations toward family travel or emergency expenses. He flipped through his notebook. She's going to contest. Family attorneys on both sides are going to push civil remedies. But that's out of my jurisdiction. As for public safety, they're fit. I advise you to arrange proper transport for them off the yacht at their expense. I exhaled. Understood. They can board the marina shuttle to town. He stood. I'll file a report to close the criminal side. Good luck. He tipped his hat and turned away, leaving me alone with my family. I watched the end of his patrol car recede into the marina's parking lot. A gust of wind snapped my leather jacket. It felt like the last shred of authority drifting away. I needed to address them directly. Inside the marina waiting room, my family gathered, Mom, arms folded. Uncle Peter tapping his foot. Aunt Janine, eyes red. Cassidy, arms crossed like a teenager facing a canceled concert, and the twins still clutching my jacket. I rose and faced them. Listen, I said, voice firm but low. You used my card without asking. You lied about staying local. You made me reverse charges and freeze your accounts in the middle of nowhere. Now law enforcement's involved because Mom got worried about her health. Mom sniffed. I wouldn't have mentioned health if you hadn't destroyed our only way home. You forced my hand, I shot back. I wasn't destroying anything. You chose to be out here without permission. You gambled on my silence and lost. Cassidy's face reddened. So you'd rather leave your own family stranded than talk? I stepped closer. I've tried talking for years. Please pay me back. Set boundaries. Let me just cover one thing. Always the same outcome. My kindness wasn't respect, it was an ATM. And I'm not an ATM anymore. Peter cleared his throat. We're partners in this family. We contributed to your success too. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Contributed. By posting on LinkedIn that you were co-signers on my credit line, by threatening lawsuits to enforce a right to spend my money, give me a break. Janine took a shaky breath. Look, Hubert, I'm sorry. I really didn't know the extent. I believed they covered costs. Cassidy. She posted that GoFundMe, I interrupted gently. And you didn't stop her. She bit her lip. I was scared. I glanced at the twins, then back at her. Fear doesn't absolve responsibility, but it does explain why you came forward. Mom scoffed. So now you want praise for being charitable? Give me a break. I squared my shoulders. I'm not asking for praise. I'm asking you to respect that my life doesn't revolve around bailing you out. If you want a relationship, we do it on my terms. No unauthorized charges, no legal threats, no public shaming. Otherwise, I walk away. The twins peeked around Janine's legs. Cassidy's lips quivered, anger, hurt, maybe shame, all tangled together. Peter shook his head. That's an impossible boundary. I felt a familiar surge, irritation, determination. Then it's impossible for us to be family. Mom's eyes blazed. Fine, you do that. Just know you'll regret it. I turned to leave, but the twins grabbed my hand. Emma looked up. Will you still take us home? I knelt, meeting her gaze. I'll take you home, but first you all get on the shuttle. You can figure out the rest later through Dana and me. They hesitated, then rose. One by one, they filed out. Mom paused, her gaze locked on mine. No apology, just hurt pride. She walked past, head down. Outside, I watched the Marina shuttle pull away, carrying my family, my past. The sun dipped lower, turning Tahoe's surface molten gold. I felt the weight lift and settle at my feet like dropping a heavy chain. But even as I stood alone on the dock, a new storm rolled in whispers from the town gossip news of lawsuits brewing, my scholarship fund inquiry still pending, that GoFundMe swirling rumors online. My choices had broken them free of me, but I wasn't free of the fallout. I turned back to the empty yacht, its hull dark and silent. A single paddle bobbed in the water, an emblem of the journey we'd taken together, and the one I now had to finish alone. A sudden buzz on my phone snapped me back. A text from an unknown number. You think this is over, see? Cassidy's initial. My chest tightened. She'd cast the last act, but the play wasn't done. I slipped my phone into my pocket, inhaled the crisp air, and walked toward my car, knowing that looming in every headline, every court filing, and every social feed was one final battle that would demand everything I had left. As I reached for the car door, my phone rang. Sheriff Thompson again. He cleared his throat. Mr. Davis, we've got new information about your scholarship fund. My blood ran cold. What part of my past was about to haunt me next?